the NAR lawsuit, the NAR settlement. What is it? How is it impacting businesses? What do we need to do to be prepared? What are we doing to prepare? What documents do you need? Should we be scared? Should we be excited? All the good, the bad, and the ugly. Welcome back to another episode of All or Nothing in Real Estate. I'm your host, Matt Smith, the founder of All or Nothing in Real Estate. This podcast is a movement to give back to this amazing industry that's given so much to me and my family. And today I'm going to dive right in. We're going to talk about the hot topic of the industry, the NAR lawsuit, the NAR settlement. What is it? How is it impacting businesses? What do we need to do to be prepared? What are we doing to prepare? What documents do you need? Should we be scared? Should we be excited? All the good, the bad, and the ugly. So to help me break this down today, I've got two members of our leadership team. We have our sales manager, Lauren. Welcome back to the show, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then we also have our director of operations, Jenna, who has helped with a lot of the back end stuff that's going to help keep us on pace today to make sure that Lauren and I don't go salesy and we actually stay strategic. So Jenna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, ladies, let's dive in. The NAR lawsuit, it is everywhere. It's believe it or not, it's here. I know that we have been internally preparing for a long time. It's crazy that it's actually here. And so now that it's actually here, I wanted to do a podcast to break down the value, the stuff that we've actually been going through to help our agents prepare, our team prepare, our operations prepare, the conversations with our broker, everything that we've been doing to make sure that our clients are served, our agents are set up for success, and all of that good stuff. So I think that we should really start with, how did we get here? All right. Like how are we in this new landscape of real estate? Lauren, we were talking before we kind of hit record here, and you had said you'd done some research on the NAR website. You want to share kind of your opinion of what you saw there of how we got here?
Yeah, and I think that in regards to how we got here, I think the goal of how we got to where we are at is crucial as well. But from my understanding, everything has happened because buyers and sellers felt like they didn't have choices whenever it came to the biggest financial transaction of their life. And so the goal with the settlements was really to focus in on two things. One, to establish that buyers and sellers and the consumer, they did have choices throughout the transaction whenever it came to negotiations, and specifically negotiations among how much the agents that were representing them were going to get paid. So transparency with that.
How crazy is that? Is that in an industry where we are responsible for someone's biggest purchase or sale of their life in most cases, all of this is on the back of lack of transparency? Like, how crazy is that if you really think about it?
And it's made quite the change in the industry. And it didn't happen overnight. I know a lot of people think that these changes just are all of a sudden being implemented starting August 17th, but this is something that has been brewing for at least 2 years easily. With that, the second big goal that they wanted to accomplish was the National Association of Realtors wanted to release liability among MLSs, different realtor associations, among real estate agents themselves and brokers, and keep negotiations between the buyers and sellers, which has always been the case. Again, just wasn't transparent and wasn't articulated in such manner. So those were really the two goals that I found.
And I think, thank you, Lauren. And the reason I wanted to start there is because I think there's so much misunderstanding. I literally just grabbed a highlighter and highlighted those 2 points in my notes here, because I want to circle back to them towards the end, because I think there's so much misinformation out there. And let me just put an asterisk. I'm not an attorney. Everything that we are sharing here today is our opinion. However, we are not oblivious and we're not new to this. And we've done our research. We've done our due diligence. We've started preparing for this a long, long time ago. And so as much as we're still kind of in the messy middle and things are going to change daily, it seems, the reason that we are here hasn't changed. It's lack of transparency in the industry, lack of options. Buyers and sellers felt trapped. They didn't know what they didn't know. They felt like that stuff was happening under the table, and maybe in some cases was. And like the negotiations were not happening between the buyer and the seller of the transaction in some cases. And so if you really break it down to 2 points of why we're here, it was lack of transparency. It's really just one, lack of transparency, because lack of transparency, even in the negotiations, right? And so if you think that's why we're here, really what my opinion of the intention of all of this is to create more transparency and to have the negotiations between the buyer and the seller. And if you really just break it down that simple, I don't understand how this is going to be a bad thing for the industry. I think it's going to be great for buyers. I think it's going to be great for sellers and the agents that choose to adapt and evolve. This is going to be a massive opportunity for them to grow their business, because the ones that have integrity, the ones that have high morals, and the ones that really practice their values and are transparent with their clients, honestly, not much changes. Just a little language change here, a little language change there, maybe an extra form to over explain something. But our business, our model hasn't changed much with these changes. Just kind of how we articulate it has, because we've always believed in transparency. And so I think that if you just really break that down, if you're listening to this, I hope that that starts this off on the right foot for you, that there's hope. This isn't anything super crazy. I don't see this happening, doing anything other than first and foremost, giving more transparency to the industry, to the agents, to the brokers, to the team leaders, to the buyers, to the sellers, to the community. And I just don't see how that can be a bad thing.
Yeah, not at all. And although there was one overarching cause, like you had mentioned, the lack of transparency, there were two goals. There are several changes within the industry that are taking place, but again, it is all in my mind, it's all for to best suit the buyers, sellers, and agents to avoid future issues whenever to prevent them from arising and to prevent them from causing roadblocks in the negotiation. It's clear, it's simple. We're handling everything up front in advance, so there's no surprises at the end of the transaction.
There's no uh-oh the day of
Yep.
closing, right? Or I didn't know that. And again, that will probably still happen, but it'll be way less often. Let's continue here. So, Jenna, I would love to hear from you. You've really worked logistically on the back end. What's your opinion of some of these things logistically that we have been working on with our operations team to like be ahead of this? Like, what are some of the things you guys have had to look at operationally wise that have like some of these changes more in depth? Like
The
the
big,
advertising of commissions, that sort of thing.
yeah, the biggest thing. So you can't advertise the commissions anymore in the MLS. That's a big one. The biggest things that I'm seeing are really when it comes down to the buyer's agency and the listing agency. The negotiations you're doing on the front end with your clients, you really are not negotiating whether or not a seller is going to be covering buyer's commission until you get to the offer. Once you start like in the offer process and you're submitting an offer, that's when those negotiations begin. But up until that point, you are just negotiating the commission between you and your client, and that's really it. That's the biggest change that I've seen, honestly, in all of this. And then there's obviously some stipulations with the offers and how they're being communicated, like the technical stuff.
Yep.
But that's the biggest thing. And the showing piece, that you can't show a home unless if you have that buyer's agency.
Yeah. Really well said. There's a couple nuances there that I just want to unpack just for everyone to understand. I hear what you're saying, Jenna. I don't think it's 100% factual, because I think, like, as an example, what I mean by that is that again, we're in the messy middle, right? And so we really don't know what we don't know yet. But my understanding is that yes, we do. You cannot cooperate, like you can't advertise a buyer's agent's commission in the MLS, right? That went away. That doesn't mean you can't negotiate the buyer's agent's commission, right? And so we can do that. but we just can't offer that in the MLS. And so it's just the way that we do that is going to be changing. And I think that we will settle somewhere. We will come to a new typical in our market, wherever that goes. So I really don't think much is going to change overall. It's just now what it is really put an emphasis on, in my opinion, is the seller clearly understands how much they're paying their agent, and the buyer clearly understands how much they're paying their agent. And we're also understanding how that money is changing hands. And it's not somewhat hidden in some cases. It's very clear and transparent. Another thing you mentioned is you can't show a home without a buyer's agency. I know a lot of agents, as a coach to a lot of teams, that's a big one for a lot of marketplaces. We are very fortunate that we've always practiced buyer's agency. And we probably haven't done it as much as we probably should have, but 75% of the time, roughly, we had a buyer's agency prior to showing, right? Like that's just our process. Now it's required. I think it's great. I think the buyer should know who they're working with, why they're working with, and what the compensation is going to be up front. That's now required. Awesome. We also have, I've got a couple bullets here. Listing agents negotiate the listing commission. Buyer's agents negotiate the buyer commission. It's no more me as the listing agent negotiate everybody's commission. Again, there's an asterisk there. I think different models and different strategies will come into play, and recommendations will be made, but it's no longer all packaged into one commission. It's separate and it's clear. This commission is for my side and that commission is for that side. And like as an example, in our state agreements, there was a spot that said that, but no one read it and no one understood it. Most agents didn't understand it. And now it's just going to be very clear and transparent. Let's see. Co-broker agreements are allowed but not recommended. I think this is one of the weird ones. I think a lot of the ways we got here was some co-broker or whatever word you want to use for the commissions between agents. As an example, I believe it's allowed, but we are not allowed to do it. Our broker EXP has made a firm stance and said we're not doing that. And I love it. I think it's great. I think it helps protect us as an industry, and it helps protect us as agents. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get paid commission. Like there's things, it just blew up and got very misconstrued. But I love that Leo, our CEO, has already got these documents. I literally have, I don't know how many pages this is, but these are pages of documents just from the toolkit that I was going through today to prep for this, that they've already prepared. Got legal documents here that they're ready. It's not the August 17th yet. I've talked to agents today, brokers today, that didn't even know NAR had a lawsuit. Like that's how far ahead we are. And we've made we've worked with our attorneys. And so it's just really, really, really powerful that I think that helps with my confidence of where we're going into. And I love that we have a stance of that's just not how we're going to do it. Not that we can't get compensated. We're just going to make sure we're 100% transparent and upfront. Lauren, Jenna, anything there you want to elaborate on?
Yep. So one of the things that you had mentioned with the co-brokerage, and I think another industry word of it is the price fixing, that could potentially rise from saying that, oh, every buyer's agent gets paid 3%. Yeah. So again, one of the main purposes and one of the main goals of the settlement was, like Matt had mentioned, the listing agent is negotiating what their fees are based on the value that they provide. The buyer's agent, they're negotiating their commission based on the value that they provide. And so that agreement is with the buyer. If the seller is willing to consider to pay any of that, awesome. If not, it goes back to what is that agreement between the buyer and their agent.
And again, and this is why I think that a lot of people are panicking, and I get it. I understand. And I think if people would just slow down, take a deep breath, and really do their research. As an example, we have a heavy influence in our market. We're very fortunate and blessed that we have a large market share, and we don't have a firm line in the sand, but here's what we are going to do is we are still going to recommend to all of our listings that they offer a buyer's agent's commission. That's our recommendation, just as we always have done. Now, again, it's how it's articulated and how it's worded. Right. And so I just think that, like, at the end of the day, I know how hard this job is. I know the work that we put in. I know what it's required, and I'm confident that this will probably, the elite agents, the elite teams, this will help us get a pay raise because the consumer will realize, holy cow, they're worth it, right? And I just think that it's, if the agents are worried about what's this going to do to their commission check, I understand that thought, but I think that's just an honest conversation in, am I really providing the value that I should be providing? Because if you are, then they'll pay it gladly.
I
Lauren, do you
think,
want to elaborate on that?
yeah, well, and I want to add two things real quick is if you are, I just want to express how important it is that you get a good grasp and a good understanding of how these changes
Absolutely.
affect the market and they impact your business and the real estate industry. So if you're thinking like, oh, I want to jump off this webinar, I'll figure it out as I go. The fines that are coming with not having an understanding and with not following the guidelines are extremely high.
Yep.
The range I've heard is $500 to $10,000, and the MLS is the one who is charging those fines. So again, I want to caution you, if you think that you have better things to do, take the time to listen to this podcast and truly understand.
This is not your normal change in the industry. This is by the Department of Justice. And the MLSs and everyone is taking this extremely serious. And I've not seen a change, and I've been around for a while. I've not seen a change in the industry like this, first and foremost. But second, a change that is enforced so strictly. And I think that that should be a wake-up call of the importance for you to understand this. Not only so you don't get fined, but let's also talk about the consumer. If you don't understand it, there's no way you can articulate for them to understand it. And so we have to slow down. We have to understand, and we have to be able to articulate this, what these changes are and how they impact our business, how they impact the clients, how they impact the transaction. We need to truly understand this on an in-depth level so that we can articulate and explain it to them so that they understand in the transparency.
Correct. And so are there going to be things that we're learning as we're going? Yes. Are there going to be questions about open houses or one-time showings or virtual showings? Yes. And so again, I want you to really understand the importance of taking the time to educate yourself on it and also making sure you're a part of communities that can guide you every step of the way. We're very fortunate that EXP has been phenomenal in giving us the tools and preparing us for what's to come. But lots of changes, break it down to simplicity. Understand the basics of what the changes are and how to implement them in your business, and stack on the other things as they come, truly understanding your value and some other things that we're going to get into here shortly. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Love it. And I think too, I want to transition to kind of the next topic is, with change comes opportunity, right? And I think let's really have an honest conversation with ourselves. If you're listening to this, I applaud you. You want to learn, you want to grow. Awesome. I hope you share this with other people that have the same mindset. And if you're of the growth mindset and you want to learn, which is why you're listening to this, let's take the glasses that you were looking, the lens that you were looking through right now, and let's make that a lens of opportunity. Not a challenge, not a change, not a struggle, but all of those things, if you reword them, can be an opportunity if you choose to see them that way. And I just want to encourage everyone, instead of all this doom and gloom that we see, I really think this is a massive opportunity. There's a multitude of reasons. I think it's a massive opportunity for us to articulate and demonstrate our value to where the consumer no longer looks at us in our profession as just like we're next to used car salesmen, right? It's time for us to step up. I love it. Step up, be better. Cool. That's an opportunity. If I'm better and I can step up and I can do more, I can show more value, I bring more value to the marketplace, then that helps me grow and level up. Second is, every human being most human beings on the planet, especially real estate agents, don't like change. Change is here. Change is required. It's not optional. Lauren mentioned fines of up to $10,000. Like that's if you don't follow this direction, right? Like it's not like, hey, I don't that doesn't apply to me. No, this applies to everyone. This is all of us. And so those that are refusing to change, and again, I'll apply to you if you're listening to this, that tells me that you're open-minded and you're listening to this specific podcast because you probably do want to change. We are going to give you some tactical stuff of what we are doing to prepare very soon. We're going to unpack it. But I want you to have the right lens that you're looking through. And these things are an opportunity if you choose to look at them that way. Because if your competition doesn't change and you do, who's going to win? Who's going to excel?
And something to add to, we've seen with MLS violations and just violations in the past is typically that falls a lot on the brokerage. These changes it's not only fines to the brokerage, it's also fines to the agent whenever it comes to that. So again, it's not falling on your brokerage. And if you have a brokerage who isn't guiding you and training you on the do's and don'ts, take the time to listen to what we have to say.
Love it. The next thing, and I say this a lot to our team, and I'll share it with everyone here. I want to invite everyone to go get a copy of their real estate license. Go get it. Go look at it. When you look at your real estate license, it'll have your name. It's really pretty. Maybe you have it hanging on your wall. But I want you to read what it says in bold letters at the top. It says you are a real estate salesperson. This is an opportunity for you to start acting like one. You don't have to be a fast, smooth talking salesperson, but you have to be able to articulate the value you provide to the marketplace. Great salespeople understand their process, understand their clients, understand their needs, and they solve problems. They have a problem. They need to buy or sell the biggest purchase or sale in their life. You need to have the skills, the communication, the value, the education, the information to help guide them through that process. This is your opportunity to step up and be that salesperson that you've always been on paper, but maybe we haven't always acted like in real life.
And you had mentioned the word opportunity. I know a common phrase that we have is opportunity doesn't go away, it goes to someone else. Something I share when coaching agents is the average homes that an agent sells per year is typically 5 or 6. In the markets that we serve in nationally, in the past year, we've seen an average of 4 homes sold per agent. And so, but what's also interesting is I know in our local areas, we've seen an increase in the number of homes sold. That opportunity didn't go away. It went to someone else. We've had changes with the market with COVID. We've had changes with the market with the interest rates that we've had. And people will always be in a position where they have to buy and sell. It's who's willing to adapt and who's willing to pivot to go help that person that needs our help.
Love it. Opportunity doesn't go away. It just goes to someone else. And me personally, right now with these changes, I've never been more excited. It's separation season. It's time for the best to be the best. It's time for those to rise and level up. With this opportunity, with these changes, with these challenges, those that take advantage of it will change their family tree forever. And I'm going to be one of those people. And if you're listening to this, I want you to be one too. You need that excitement. It's separation season. Are you going to hibernate? Or are you going to come out and separate yourself? It's so important that you realize that this is a massive opportunity. With all of these changes and challenges, that's the biggest opportunity you will ever see in your career. Like you thought COVID was a big opportunity? That's nothing compared to this. Speaking of the COVID market, if you could go back today, you could rewind the clock knowing what you know now about what happened in 2020, 2021, 2022 in the real estate market, would you act differently? Would you do things different?
1000%.
Everybody would. It was so easy, right? Like we could have just stacked money. But when you're in it, it's hard to see it. But now we see the opportunity that we had in that marketplace. Everyone does. Don't make that same mistake. This is that same opportunity. The opportunity looks different. The skill and the work and the communication looks different, but the opportunity, in my opinion, is even greater. Because you ask any expert, there's all kinds of these things out there that we had 70,000 agents got out of the business last year. They're predicting with this change, 250,000 agents out of the industry. It's separation season. Are you separating yourself with your skills? with your education, with your knowledge, with your commitment to the skills that you need, the communication, the activity you need in your business to dominate this change? If so, this is the greatest opportunity you will ever see in your career. That's how I feel.
Yeah, the inside of my heart, if you could see a video, it'd be like Braveheart, where they're like, let's go.
I love it.
Like, it's an amazing opportunity. Everyone should, like Matt said, it's an exciting time. They're looking to us to be the leaders.
100%. Let's go.
I think too, this is a great opportunity to build that deeper relationship and trust with clients. With the transparency being so front, I mean, it's so open now that when you're in that initial conversation, to me, that trust that client is building with you, that's not only going to make their experience better, it's going to make your experience better when you're going through that transaction. When you have a client that trusts you, your transaction is going to be 8,000 times more smooth. And so that's going to be beneficial.
Is that a fact? Did you do the stats on that?
It is. I ran it just before this, actually. And then another opportunity I see too for agents is the relationships you're building with other agents, because there is so much community. And one thing you're going to hear in this podcast, I think a lot, is the conversations you're having with clients, the conversations you're having with agents. Like, it's all coming down to your conversations and how clearly are you able to communicate. It's so important that you're building great relationships with other agents, because when you're calling them and saying, hey, we're sending you an offer. We're going to ask that buyer's commission's in it. And we're really excited. We really want to work with you guys. You know, we've had great transactions before. Imagine that listing agent going to their seller and saying, hey, we've got an offer coming and I have amazing news. It's coming from an amazing agent. I've worked with them before. Transactions have been smooth. And yes, they're asking for the buyer's commission, but it's a great agent that you're going to be working with, that we're going to be working the transaction with. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for those two things.
1,000%. All right, let's dive into the guts of this. Let's share with everyone, what are we doing to prepare for this? So now hopefully everyone has a grasp or understands the opportunity we have, understands what this is, what the changes are, why we're here. Let's get to the good stuff. How can we actually help people get better with these changes? What are we doing?
I want to go ahead and share a story. So like I mentioned, our team didn't just start implementing these changes last week whenever Missouri came out with these forms. We have been keeping a pulse on where this NAR settlement and lawsuit was going. We've been following it ever since the beginning. As soon as we heard it, we knew we had to get ahead of it. And because of that, we've worked on our systems, our processes, our conversations, our confidence, getting a good understanding of what these changes meant. And so yesterday, the story I wanted to share was I was at a listing appointment, and it was actually Monday. I was at a listing appointment. I was meeting with a seller who was extremely competent about the NAR changes, knew that it dealt with commissions, knew that it dealt with lack of communication, lack of transparency, knew that no one would be allowed to show his house without having representation. But he still had questions. Even though he had a really good understanding, he still knew that there were missing puzzle pieces. So he had a laundry list of questions that he wanted to ask. And I kindly said to him, hey, I'm more than happy to answer all of your questions. Let me go over our proven processes. And I have a good feeling I'm going to answer the majority of them in what we're going to cover. Went through our presentation, went through our systems, our processes, our team. And throughout that, he did not have a single question at the end of it about the NAR, about our processes. And the main point of me sharing that story is, what are you doing to be proactive in the conversations that you are having with buyers and sellers?
Really good. And it just reminds me of so much. And I think that's a really great story. Thank you for sharing that. I think agents sometimes are on defense, and especially when changes like this, we are in a reactionary state. Literally, I'm going to take you inside of, we had a sales meeting today, and we shared some changes that we made to our buyers and sellers presentations. And one of the changes Lauren and I discussed was, let's make a slide that has frequently asked questions. and let's bring up the questions we know they have on purpose. Before they can ask us, let's ask them. Set the proper expectations. Don't shy away from it. Don't hide from it. Address it head on and just be prepared to handle that. And when you go in with that confidence and you go in with that understanding, that education, those concerns, those questions, those hesitations completely disappear. Another kind of tip here is a lot of people classify those questions as objections. First and foremost, most objections are not objections. We frame them as objections when really it's sales skepticism. Those are not the same thing. It's sales skepticism, it's lack of relationship, lack of trust. It's not truly an objection. And so most of those questions people would, when Lauren got approached from the seller and a seller asked all these questions, especially if you feel like they're really educated, we panic and we freeze and we feel like we've got to stop everything and we have to answer their questions directly. Instead, what did Lauren do? She pivoted and said, those are great questions. Thank you so much. And I love that you're educated and you're informed and you're on top of this. That's phenomenal. Allow me to take you through our proven process of everything that we have to offer. And then if you still have those questions at the end, I'll be more than happy to address them because I don't want any question unanswered. And then dive into the value that you have. And at the end of it, I've seen it time and time and time again. Those objections, those skepticism, that lack of trust disappears, and they realize you're here to help them. You're here to guide them. You're here to lead them through the biggest purchase or sale of their life. And so I'm going to take that a step further. So I said most objections aren't objections, but let's pretend that they are. And every single question you get, let's call it an objection for this argument. What is the best way to handle those objections? The only way to handle those objections is in advance. So what did Lauren do and demonstrate for us? All of those quote unquote objections that this guy had, Lauren handled them through the presentation. She addressed all the questions that he had before he even had to ask them. Does that build or take away from trust? It increases trust tenfold. Rather than asking the question and Lauren giving an answer that he's okay, satisfied with. When it's your process and you're leading and you're driving because you have the confidence in yourself and you're present and you're prepared for this, it changes everything. And you need to have that confidence in yourself. And if you don't have that presentation dialed yet, you need to. Literally, our presentations have been built by doing consult after presentation after presentation and realizing what the biggest struggles are. What are the most common questions? What is the biggest pain point? What is the biggest value add? What is important to them? And then we put it all in a presentation. It's not about us. It's about them and how we can solve their problems. And if you make that adjustment and you realize the best way to handle these objections, the best way to be prepared for this is to be prepared up front. Address these head on. Literally, in our presentation, there is a slide that says how are commissions negotiated. And it's a talking point for us to tell them exactly how they're negotiated up front before they sign in. Like we're not hiding from it, buyer and seller. Because it needs to be transparent. And at the end of the day, do you want to work with people that don't want to pay your compensation? Right? Like, let's go back to, and I'm guilty. I've done this. Shame on me. And if you've done it, shame on you too. But have you ever told a buyer I work for free? You lied. Right? They didn't pay us, but they did pay us because they paid more for the property so we could get compensated. Let's go back to the very first part. Why are we here? Lack of transparency. We didn't work for free. And so now we're upfront with what we charge, what our fee is, why we charge it, what value we provide. And now they willingly pay us that. How much smoother are their transactions going to go? How much better relationship you're going to have with the clients? All because we're just changing the language and handling it upfront and being transparent. And so that's a lot, but I want to unpack kind of how we've got there. One of the things that we do a lot is we believe in role plays. You're not practicing with each other. You're practicing on your clients and they deserve better. I'm going to say it again. If you're not practicing with each other, you're practicing on your clients, and they deserve better. So what does your conversation look like when they ask you those questions? What does your presentation look like? How are you setting appointments? If you get that question on the phone, how do you handle it? You need to know that and have it ingrained so that it's embedded in you so you know how to handle those. And you're not put on the spot while you're on an appointment. You have to practice. You have to. Lauren, what else are we doing other than role plays?
So with our presentations, again, I think it's crucial that you're in a community where people have boots on the ground. They're putting the things that we're implementing to the test. And so we're not just saying, oh, hey, we created this fancy listing presentation. No, we created it, we implemented it, we adjusted, we pivoted, we made adjustments where we had to. And with it, some of the major changes are, what's our value, and are we role playing and practicing how to articulate that? Were we handling the objections in advance? We made those changes to our presentation. Everything is straightforward, clear, and transparent. There's no messy middle with it. Here's what we know. Here's how it's being handled. Here's our recommendations. At the end of the day, we are the leader in the transaction. They're looking for at us to be that. What expectations are we setting up? At the end of the day, problems in real estate will most likely still arise from unmet expectations being met. We're setting those during the listing presentation. We're making sure communication is established. Some other changes that we have made is we have been really active in what are sellers' problems in our industry and how are we going to address them?
Yep.
How are we going to solve their problems? If you are really good at listening and solving problems in this industry, you will have more success than you can imagine.
I want to unpack that a little bit. And this goes back to my very first, before I got my first sales job. I have to simplify things for my brain to process it. I'm a very simple guy. I have to simplify them. And then I can add complexity along the way. And I thought, I got a sales opportunity for a sales job. I'm not a salesperson. And I sat and thought, and I unpacked it. And I made a simple equation for myself. Said, what do I have to do to make sales? I just got to solve problems. So sales equals solving problems. And so if that is true, how do we make more sales? We solve more problems. But too many people are trying to solve problems they don't know are actual problems. It's surface level and it's not depth. And so where you as a salesperson need to spend the majority of your time is digging deeper and actually finding the root of the problem. If you actually understand the problem, you can solve it. And I promise you, every time you solve the root of a problem, you make a sale. But we don't do a good enough job in discovery. Again, great salespeople ask great questions. We don't do enough job in discovery, helping them self-discover what their problem truly is, and then go another layer and another layer and another layer deeper on that problem. And then we give a solution once they are aware of their own problem, and it's a no-brainer. And now you're the hero. That's sales 101 to me. And I think what Lauren articulated there is our presentations are built on us understanding and asking about their problems. And if we know that this seller has that problem and that seller has this problem, and the seller last week had that problem, the next 10 sellers are probably going to have the same problem. So why don't we just solve it in advance? And then why don't we articulate value around it? Why don't we create a USP around that problem? Why don't we address it in our presentation up front? Why don't we do marketing videos around it? Why don't we do an email campaign around it? And that's how you grow a business. And that's how you grow a sales organization, is you solve problems. But too many times, salespeople want to be the center of attention. And they want to talk. And so many salespeople ask me as a coach all the time, new agents in our organization, Matt, what do I say? I need to know what to say. And what they should be asking is, what question should I ask? You are just one great question away from a sale. You're one great question away from your next sale. You just have to ask more questions.
And speaking on the tactical side of it, I will say we spent a lot of time just brain dumping, not only what problems in the industry are sellers facing, but we also looked at what, if we were a buyer or a seller, what would we want in the agent? that is representing us. If we're a buyer seller in this market, what do we want in the team that is representing us?
That is
And so I want to,
huge. That you guys, sorry, Lauren, to interrupt, but that is huge. You guys need to get a whiteboard, and you need to do that. Not only what gaps do you see, what common problems do you have, and just brain dump it and circle the ones that are the most common that you hear over and over and over again. But also, if I were a buyer, if I were a seller, what questions would I have? And you put that hat on. Better yet, call an agent out of town and pretend to be a buyer. See what that process goes through, right? Like when you're actually in it yourself, when you're actually in it trying to transact, you see it through a different lens. We assume everyone knows what we know. And what great salespeople do, they're able to break it down and articulate it at a kindergarten level so that everyone understands. It's a lack of understanding and a lack of unmet expectations that cause these disagreements. So if you can clearly articulate your value, articulate the process, and you can set clear expectations and meet or exceed those expectations, this will be a really great process. But do that whiteboard exercise to understand those problems so that you can actually build value around those things. Sorry, Lauren, didn't mean to interrupt.
no, you're totally fine. Those brain dumps that we've had, I feel like that has really helped us set us apart from the industry and really help us get a good grasp on further helping buyers and sellers. Another thing is, once you have those brain dumps completed and you've identified what's your plan of action at buyers strategy sessions, seller strategy sessions, you've identified what your unique selling propositions are, what your guarantees are if you're going to offer them. The special sauce in that is having extreme conviction and belief in what your team has to offer. And I really feel like all of those together are going to help you in this industry, and it's going to help sellers feel confident in hiring you, helping buyers and sellers have confidence and belief in hiring you to represent them in the largest transaction of their life.
I love it. It reminds me of a quote, believe it or not. You guys know that I like quotes.
So surprising.
Right? I told you I'm simple. I can't remember a lot, so I have to remember little things. And so it reminds me of, if you are not convinced, you will never be convincing. If you are not convinced, you will never be convincing. And so I want to unpack that a little more. One of the things we started working on. So what is our team doing? Let me recap some of this. Role plays, consistent conversations, the whiteboard exercises consistently. We're always asking our agents, what are you hearing? What did this person say? And so that we can help role play around it. We can help build packages around it. Presentations. Are your presentations up to date? Do they handle these? Do they set the proper expectations? Do they handle these questions and concerns in advance? Does it clearly articulate everything in the next step in the process? What about USPs? I think back, I don't know, year and a half ago, our business, we started transforming the value in our business. And one of the things I really harped on, and Lauren hit on it very subtly, but I want to go very in depth because this is something very important. We started so long ago, it doesn't seem new, but this was a part of the plan for what is happening now. All of this was done strategically. USPs and being focused on listings, we started doing those things about a year and a half ago. So much so that we spent probably 6 months doing nothing else but talking in sales meetings about USPs. Every call recording we would listen to, every role play, all we were checking was USP, USP, USP. Did they hit it? Did they hit it? Did they hit it? Did they hit it? Because it's so important. We have to articulate the value. Reminds me of another quote. You can have the best value on the planet, but value unarticulated is value unappreciated. If you want the clients to appreciate the value, you have to take the time to articulate it in a manner that they can appreciate it. And so are you really explaining the value? Or are you just saying the value? Are you saying it or are they hearing it? Two different things. Mm-hmm. So unique selling propositions. If you don't have any, super easy to create. That whiteboard exercise that you did, what are those problems? How do you solve them? That's a unique selling proposition. Come up with a cool name, tag it. That's your unique selling proposition. Pretty simple, right? But I think it's important that we stand out from the crowd. And here's why, especially in today's marketplace. If I call it an elevator pitch, if you were to be in an elevator with a buyer or seller, they say, you got 30 seconds till I get to my floor. I'm going to sell my $10 million house. Why should I choose you? Go. What do you say? Guess what agents tell me all the time? And I've said this from stages. Like, I've asked this on stage live just to kind of see and feel the room. And it's the same answers every time.
I'm honest.
I'm honest. I work really hard. I sell a lot of real estate.
It'd be my top priority.
Yeah. You'll be
I'll
my
get you
only
in a
client
house.
this year, right? Like, whatever they say. And there's not a wrong answer. And I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but I hope like I can help you think differently. Because if you think differently, I think you grow. And I think if you grow, you can win. And so if those answers are great, except for the last one. That one's kind of funny, right? You should be honest. You should have integrity. You should work really hard, right? You should do those things. But does that make you unique? And if it does, what does that say about our industry? We help people with the biggest purchase or sale of their lives. Shouldn't we be honest? Shouldn't we work hard? Shouldn't we have integrity? Those should be the bar. If you don't have those, you shouldn't be in the business. So what do you do above and beyond that for the client? When you make that mental shift and that adjustment, everything will change. Because again, talk about the conviction. Now you will understand that what you do is a head and shoulders above everyone else. So many agents feel like they don't have anything of value to provide because they feel like they get lost in the noise. Do this exercise and you will find that value that you provide that makes you unique, because everyone has value to the marketplace. You just have to package it, position it, and you have to be convicted that it actually helps people.
I want to add on that too. If you're listening and you're wondering, how do I create this? I do want to point out, we did a podcast episode a while back that gives you the blueprint on how to create one of those irresistible offers. So I would encourage you to go and listen to that. I think it's called Creating Irresistible Offers, where we give you that blueprint. But another thing, we're talking about the sales side and how we prepared on the sales end of things. And I just want to reiterate that your company all rose in the same direction. And so while we're talking, these are the things that sales did. Sales did these role plays, sales did these things. Marketing was doing the same thing in the background. Our messaging is the same thing that our agents are saying. Operations, the processes we're building are all fueling the things that the agents are saying. Like, we're all rowing in a cohesive unit. And so there's so many different components of this where we're all moving in alignment. And so while you're hearing like having these conversations with your sellers, the messaging that you're doing is the same messaging you're using in your marketing. You're just duplicating it across your entire business and running efficiently.
I love it. Really good stuff. Yeah, and I forgot we did that podcast. That was really good. Yeah, so go back and listen to that. We'll link in the show notes too, or reach out to me. I'm happy to share it with you. But it was something about creating irresistible offers. We really unpacked that, probably like an hour on that. But I want to transition to something else that we started about a year and a half ago. Something else that we started about a year and a half ago is we transitioned our business from focusing on buyers to focusing on listings. And I think there's a lot of value to listening to shows like this. There's a lot of value to being in the rooms that I'm in. There's a lot of value to being around the coaching clients that I'm around, to be around the top performers in the world that I'm fortunate to be friends with. And one of those values is we see these trends and these changes coming before they come. Again, if I said the COVID market, you wanted to change, there's a lot of things you would probably change if that market were to happen tomorrow, right? You would be prepared, you would do differently. If you were to know that the way buyer agents get compensated was going to change forever, what would you want to change about your business? You may want to go back to the old adage of, you've got to list to last. Listings create leverage. Listings create leads. And so about a year and a half ago, we changed the focus of our business into, we are listing focused. And it's still today. We literally had a meeting on it today around our focus around listings. And I think it's so crucial that you understand the importance of breaking these things down over time. Like, again, these things that we have didn't happen overnight. But if you don't have them, that's all right. Don't panic. Start now. Start building. Use this as a framework, as a springboard to get to where you need to go. Reach out to us in our private group. Reach out to me. I want to help you. That's why we're doing this. But I want to also encourage you. You need USPs. And I really think every agent, if you don't have a plan to dominate listings, you are going to be my opinion is you could be at the mercy of the marketplace eventually. Maybe it'll be immediately, and maybe it'll change, and that won't change. And maybe buyers agents will get compensated more. I don't know where the cookies will fall. But what I do know is it's way easier to focus on listings, and you have a lot more things that are in your control if you own the listing market. What else are we doing to prepare? What else do we want to share with them?
I feel like you've hit a lot of the main bullet points as far as our scripting, our role play. So we adjusted our scripts. We're role playing 4 to 5 times a week. We're reviewing our game film, and what I mean by that is we're reviewing what were our calls, what were our appointments, just what went really well, what could we have adjusted on, what's something that our agents are struggling to overcome that we have built in our processes. Do we need to ask better questions? Do we need to what do we need to change up on that? And I think some other things are, from looking at the buyer and seller process from start to finish, are we making sure that expectations are met consistently throughout? Do we have our operations and our listing coordinators and our transaction coordinators? Is everyone on the same page? And as Jenna mentioned, are we all rowing in the same direction? Do we all have a good grasp and understanding of the changes that are taking place in the MLS on our forums and our conversations and our marketing? There's a lot of areas that are impacted on it and are needing to be adjusted. And I would just say, make sure you take it one step at a time, break each section down, and figure out what your process, what your plan is, and just know you're going to have to make changes along the way. I'm sure that there's going to be things that we have to pivot with our forums. There's some things even now with the industry where they're like, hey, that's a great question. That's something that we're going to have to revisit once we get there. But yeah, if you have questions, just make sure you're not doing it alone. Partner, get in the right communities to, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Get in the right communities and make sure you're getting stronger.
And just so you know, we would love with open arms to invite you to our communities, whether that's in the All or Nothing family, whether that's I don't know, maybe you're local, you want to join our local team, or maybe you're interested in what a partnership with the EXP looks like. Maybe you're interested in coaching. This is not a pitch by any means. It's just an invitation that I think this is time where the strong will survive, and we're way stronger together. And I think it's time that our brilliant minds get together. We work together. We share these resources, and we grow and we evolve together. I want to add a couple things. I want to talk about some documents. I want to be strategic really quick. The documents that you need, and maybe hopefully your state and or your brokers already got these for you. But if not, here's what my opinion again of what you need is you need documents that says basically your listing agreement needs to be updated, right? And if it's not the listing agreement, one of the things that our broker rolled out was a direct compensation from the seller and what that looks like. And it's very cut and dry and it's clear. Another thing, maybe you already have this. Again, this was already standard practice for our market, for our team, maybe not our market, but for our team, was a buyer's agency agreement or a buyer broker agreement. That needs to be signed prior to showing a property. So you need one of those. I also recommend use with caution, but you need a single property buyer broker agreement. How can you show one home? Maybe this is the answer to open houses. Again, we're in the messy middle, but you cannot open the door and show them without a written agreement. Like that changes a lot. So just make sure you're prepared. And one other thing is a compensation agreement writer. I don't know if that'll always be required. I think some people are doing it in special agreements, but I believe it's either our broker or our state. One of the two has gotten that document that it's part of. It's just very clear, right, and transparent on how that compensation is agreed to. And so I think that just very, very important you have those documents in place. Something else is a freebie that I think is important. And we're going to put all this stuff together and package it. And if you're interested in a copy of this, like a copy of kind of the things we're doing and the FAQs that we're giving to clients, like I've got a document here, what sellers should know and how we simplify your selling experience. All of these changes, here's what you should know if you're a seller, just as a leave behind, as a give out, as a value. What about a buyer? Here's what you should know. And here's how we can help guide you to your buying experience. And it's just frequently asked questions with answers. And it just really, again, leaning into the conversation, not shying away from it. And so if you want access to those, you want a copy of those, please reach out. I'm happy to share that. And again, don't be afraid. I have so many people that are like, should I be scared? Maybe. If you're not willing to adapt and change, then yes. But if, again, let's put the lens of opportunity on, let's look through that lens. And this could be the change that you needed in this industry. This could be the one thing that changes everything if you choose to take advantage of it. And so, again, you guys heard my excitement earlier. It's separation season. I can't wait for this. Like, I think this is the best thing that's happened to our team, to our business. And that's just how I'm choosing to look at it. Not that I have a choice anyway, right? But you add more transparency in how much I get compensated. That means that it's clear if I bring more value, I make more money. Sign me up all day long. I have no problem with bringing value. I have no problem being held accountable to the value I bring to the marketplace. And that's really, to me, all that this did. It really helped enhance. Let's tie it back to the very beginning. Where did all this start? Transparency. So just be transparent, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, and a couple things to add to that. I made it through the COVID market. I've made it through 7, 8, 9% interest rates. Something that really helped me is when COVID happened, I told myself, I'm not going to be one of the agents that gets out of the industry because of COVID. I'm burning the ship. I'm committing to real estate. I'm committing to being the best that I can be. Same thing applied with interest rates, and the same thing is applying now. So someone needs help, they're calling on me to help them. That's my mindset, and I hope it's the same for everyone that's listening to this podcast. The other thing too, if you do not have guidance, if you do not have direction, if you don't have resources, sometimes you're called to be resourceful. And so if someone is not delivering that on a platter to you of exactly what you need to do, these fines are, like I said, they're not messing around whenever it comes to the changes that we're having. I want to encourage you to go be resourceful and figure out exactly what documents you need. Because for us, for example, whenever we're having the buyer's agency signed or the single property signed, we're still also having to get that broker disclosure form signed in conjunction with it. Our buyers need to know how can they be represented in the state that they're operating in. So again, don't wait for someone to come tell you exactly what to do, how to do it, when to do it, what needs to be done. If that's not coming your way, go figure it out and find a way.
And if you don't know where to go, you're listening to this, reach out to us. We're here to help. And I'm going to end it on this. Ladies, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And guys, I hope you got value from this one. I want to end it with this. I think this will be inspirational. I think everyone would agree that no matter what happens come August 18th and beyond, there will be real estate agents that win and win at a very, very high level. I can say that 100% fact. Why not you? Why not now? Go get it. See you guys next time.